Hi, I'm Cindy Soul, 2020 Cumberland County Teacher of the Year. Today, I will begin by sharing two narratives. The first one is me sitting at the beach reading quietly when I overhear a conversation about education, so naturally I listened in, and in that conversation a man said, in speaking about Portland Public Schools, "What do you expect when you pluck a kid from a hut in Angola and stick him in a classroom and it slows the learning down of everyone?" Now, you may be feeling a strong reaction to these words, but let me tell you, these are words that I have heard my entire career, 20 years at Riverton School. Words that imply my students who face the challenges of poverty, trauma, and language barriers cannot learn at the same rate as their more advantaged peers. And this simply is not true. The second narrative I'm going to tell you is equally important to this story. Our American education system has focused on teaching literacy, so much so that it is ignoring other subjects that teach content about our world. Elementary students across the nation receive 9 hours of science instruction annually on an average. Yet despite the focus on reading, since 1998, reading scores in our nation have not risen. They remain low. Only 1/3 of our 4th and 8th graders read at a proficient level. These two narratives represent the reasons that led me to develop a deep conviction that science engages all learners in powerful and meaningful ways that have been overlooked. At my school, me included, we invested our time and resources in teaching literacy and even created block scheduling that only included math, writing, and reading. Science and social studies were abandoned in the name of time. The emphasis on reading became very focused on supporting students to learn the skills of reading rather than reading to learn. For example, in reading nonfiction, the content of the text was less of a focus rather than features like discrete skills, like find the main idea. What do these expert words mean? How do you interpret these text features? And in doing that, reading becomes isolated and lacks the purpose of building knowledge. There were successes. I, myself, built an immense amount of knowledge and literacy that still serves me well in my practice today. And my students showed annual growth where they met their learning targets. However, I was still deeply bothered by the fact that in spite of the growth in learning I saw in my classroom, my students still remained less than proficient in reading, too many of them. I was determined to make the learning I saw happening in the classroom stick and be transferable to things like standardized measures. I knew there was something I was missing, and I was bound and determined to find out what it was. I knew I could do more to be the kind of teachers my students needed and deserved. With my colleagues, I expanded the professional growth beyond literacy to integrating technology. I developed a repertoire of social and emotional learning practices and implemented second step curriculum, Common Corners, and restorative circles. I devoted time to forming relationships with parents through classroom and school events like literacy nights. I partnered with community organizations like Side by Side to bring local artists into my classroom, and spent time improving RTI and intervention systems by joining the RTI task team. While these efforts yielded results that positively impacted our school culture in meaningful ways, as we review the data each year, we still face the disappointment that our efforts to close the opportunity gap fell short. While this was very difficult, I firmly believe that the progress we made positioned Riverton to not only discover the power of science, but also to be ready to implement it. Research has shown that engaging students in learning about their world not only empowers them by teaching deeper learning skills like problem solving, critical thinking, and communication competencies, it also teaches learners to read for meaning. The design of science lessons provides strategic opportunities for students to engage in discourse collaboratively to figure out the mysteries of the natural world. This provides opportunities for students to work with peers to solve a problem, construct an explanation, provide justification, build on the ideas of others, or express thinking during a learning activity. By providing shared experience, all students have access to learning regardless of their individual home and community experiences or their prior knowledge. This is particularly important for disadvantaged students because knowledge sticks best when it is taught with related information. I have fully immersed myself in figuring out how to integrate science by taking advantage of every learning opportunity I could. I utilized support from my district science coach and partnered with Maine Math and Science Alliance to design integrated reading and writing curriculum, while simultaneously mastering deeper content knowledge. Topics like how glaciers form the state of Maine was definitely not a part of my One Science Methods course. But in doing so, I have become empowered, knowing I am making the kind of difference that I have wanted to for years, and feeling incredibly passionate about how science can transform learning. I have chosen one student anecdote to share that exemplifies the type of impact science can have. This student entered grade 4 with one-on-one support for behavior and 1.5 hours a day of pull-out literacy instruction. Once he became more engaged with learning through science, his learning profile changed dramatically. For our Earth Science unit, I showed a gripping video of a road collapsing due to flooding in Freeport, and kids had to work together to figure out how and why this road had collapsed. He flourished and became a leader in class discussions and could not stop reading to learn more. He would come in after the weekend and be like, "Guess what? I figured out more, Mrs. Soul." It was amazing to see the ripple effect of this in his confidence, social relationships, and behavior. The day I met with his mom to share that he had surpassed grade level reading proficiency was one I will hold in my teacher heart for years to come. She was so incredibly proud of him. Standardized measures have also shown the impact of science. At Riverton, our reading MEA scores went from 35% of students proficient to 54% from 2017 to 2019. Success was most dramatic for English learners. Prior to engaging in science, 8% of fourth graders demonstrated proficiency with English language as compared to 58% of students in January of this year. This data shows that groups that face the largest opportunity gaps in my school are being empowered in ways they weren't prior to engaging in the inquiry approach of science and learning about their world. If education is to improve and empower all students, not just to read better, but to be passionate, caring, community-oriented members of society who face challenges of our world like climate change and racism with problem solving, critical thinking, and communication skills, we must take a closer look at how integrating science into our literacy instruction can make a difference, especially for our most vulnerable students.